Hey, hello everybody. I am here. It's Tuesday and it looks like we are live. So, welcome. Hello, beautiful people. I'd love to hear from you. Who's here? I can see a few people, but I can't tell who is here. And so, just if you'd like to say hello in the chat, it would be great to hear from you. But I am super excited to be here today. Oh my gosh, do we have a lot to cover? There is so much that has to be talked about. Hey, hello, Core Scorpy. Oh, hi, Todd. And hello, Nan Cardos. Welcome. Oh, yay. Thank you. She said, welcome right back. And I appreciate that. It's great to kind of see who's in here and just kind of say hello to everyone. So, yeah, the more I learn about food labels, I mean, it's not a very simple thing. And so I thought that, well, gosh, I got to share some of this stuff. So I have so much to share that I just want to let you know there is a possibility that we might go over the hour. I was thinking that if it was way too much, I would divide it into two, but I think we're just going to see what we could do here. And so hopefully if you can stay the full amount, I would love for you to. Hey, Karen, so good to see you. Love that you're here as well. And so I guess I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, what I want to share with you is something that I think is super important, how to read our food labels and understand what's really in the food that we're buying. And I do a lot of my eating from the produce aisle, but there are times when I do purchase things with labels, and that's why I thought that we should talk about labels. We definitely have food that comes in packages in our home. So I'm sure most of you have heard that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration just recently banned red dye number 3. Yay! And that's banned from food because of its link to cancer. But what other things are in food that we eat, right? We need to know. So the labels on our packaged foods can give us some insight, but if you know how to read them, that's the trick. You've got to know how to read them. So I know that food labels can be really confusing, and there's so much conflicting information out there. So I just wanted to talk about this together. And so I do want to ask, what do you look at when you look at the food label? What is it that you look at? Maybe it's the first thing you look at, or it's something that you always go to. Let me know in the chat. And I do want to say hello, Jill D. Hi, nice to have you here with us. And so the question again is, what do you look at when you look at the food label? And hey, maybe you don't even look at the food label. Whatever it is, let me know in the chat. So I just want you to know, I hope that you can share your questions and comments as well as your input here. It helps us all navigate and learn from one another and be able to make the best decisions possible when purchasing something that comes with a label. So let's get started. And we're going to begin with talking about the nutrition facts label. So I am just going to grab a box here. I've got a bunch of packaged things, and so I want to talk about that. And I just want to take a minute to look in the chat. Okay, so yeah, what do you look at when you look at the food labels? I'm seeing saturated fat and ingredients, bullseye, right? And that's from Core Scorpy. Jill D says, I look for oil, salt, and natural flavors. Interesting. So, it's, even though we just had 2 comments here, everybody might be looking at something different and maybe not the complete message that's on a label. So when I look at it, I see things like, oh, hey, I just want to say hi to John Jew. Good to have you here. So I'm just, picking up this random Mary's Gone Crackers organic crackers. And I'm looking at the nutrition facts. I just want to, in case you're not familiar, I just want to, let's see, make sure. Can you see this okay? There you go. So nutrition facts, right? And we're just going to be talking about this part right here for now. And so when I look at things like the calories, the total fats, total carbohydrates, sugars, protein and sodium, all those things that are usually listed, these are all really helpful in giving us a quick idea of how many nutrients are in a serving of food, but it's not the full picture. And we're going to be talking about that throughout. And there's more to this that you, I think, need to know that I wanted to know. And so let's look at each of these nutrients listed here and understand what they really mean for our body. And so right at the top, you can grab a package if you want. All the packages are similar in this portion, not necessarily the rest. And so if you want to follow along with something that you can see, please grab something. It would be great. And if not, I'm just going to read what I have here. But at the top is the serving size. And it lets us know how many, it lets us know how to measure how much of the actual amount of this food you're eating. So this one is a serving size says 12 crackers, right? So, that's kind of a hard one. So for an example, let's say the serving size, and I'm sure there's another one here. The serving size says 1 cup, right? And let's say you eat 2 cups. Well, you're getting double the calories in the nutrition facts. And that would include fats, sugars, and everything else that's listed. And so you might not realize that the serving size. So that was one example. So on the crackers, this box says it gives about 6 servings per this container, and each serving is about 12 crackers. So if I were going to have 12 crackers, that would give me 140 calories. But if I ate the whole box, wow, then that would be times 6. That's a lot more than what I might think. So I just want to see if there's anything. No? Okay. Okay, so there's a catch, right? And I may have just kind of, just talked about it, but just to make it really simple, that the serving sizes aren't based on what you should eat, right? They're based on what the average person might eat, right? And did you ever think about that? And so let's be real, like most of us eat more than the suggested label says. Maybe not in this one, but maybe if you're talking about cups and things like that. So always compare the serving size to how much you're actually eating, and then you can do the math. And so another example that I would like to talk about are these soy curls, right? So I have a box of soy curls here. And let's see, on the back, it says it's so funny that it doesn't say serving size per container. It says that's the second time. So about 8 servings per container, right? So there are supposedly 8 servings per container, but let's just be honest, right? In our home, we don't eat just 1 or 2 servings of this, which would be 3/4 of a cup per serving, or 1.5 cups, right? We actually make and eat almost this whole bag when we cook these. So Todd might have 3 or 4 servings in one sitting. So you just need to be aware and understand what you're actually getting if you're wanting to understand that. So the next one is the calories, right? So calories are the energy your body gets from the food. But not all calories are created equal. And that big calorie number is measured as a total of carbohydrates and fats and proteins. And so what the number doesn't tell you or tell us is what type of calories are you eating? So this says serving size 3/4 cup dry, 120 calories, right? Just to let you know what it says. So if you are looking at something and you want to put in the comments what yours says, just let us know the product and what you're looking at if you are wanting to do that. So anyways, going back to calories. Calories, let's say from simple carbohydrates, like sugar, that'll give you quick energy, but it can cause other issues like blood sugar spikes and crashes. And so that's one kind of calorie, the simple carbs like sugar. Then there are calories from complex carbs. We're not going to go into the definition of all these things, but I will just tell you that complex carbs are those in things like whole grains, and they provide steady energy, right? And they're far more nutritious than the ones that spike your blood sugar. And then there's calories from fat, which is right under here, the total fat. And there's a bunch of fats. Calories from fat don't differentiate between the healthy fats, like those that you would find in avocado, and unhealthy fats like trans fats. So that's really interesting. So while calories are important to track, they don't tell us the full story. Always think about the quality of the calories, not just the quantity. I personally don't track my calories because I'm eating in a way that allows me to just eat until I'm full. But we're talking about labels here. So I wanted to mention that and just want to be clear on that. So before we go to the next section, I just want to check the chat here. And we do have a comment here from Core Scorpy. Fun fact about calories. Calories, quote unquote, on food labels are truly kilocalories, meaning 1 calorie. On a nutrition label, there are truly 1,000 scientific calories. Wow. Wow, I had no idea. Okay, and then its correction is truly. Okay, is truly. Is truly. Got it. It's all good. Thank you for sharing it. Hey, plant-powered peddler Janet's in the house. Hello. Thank you for joining. Hi, Tanya. Good to have you. And then Core Scorpy says they adjust the scale. Yep. So anyways, I appreciate that. That's always good to hear what other people know about things that I don't. And so I want to also go to the next section. And that one on my thing here is total fat. And the types of fat in a serving, right? So we just mentioned that a minute ago. But fat is essential for our bodies. It helps us absorb vitamins, support brain function. It gives us energy. But like with everything, it's important to look at the type of fat, right? So on the list right under total fat, it says saturated fat. And it also says trans fats. So saturated fats are the ones that we really want to stay away from. Saturated fats typically found in animal products and in oils, and these fats can raise our cholesterol levels. Trans fats are artificial fats, and those are linked to heart disease, and and this is not a complete list. I'm just sharing a little bit, little blurb of things. So go ahead, Todd. Why don't you read that, and I will take a quick break here from Core Scorpy.
Sure. So Core Scorpy says, and a scientific calorie is a unit of energy defined as the amount of heat needed to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree of Celsius. And that's all I know about calories.
Wow. So do you want to take a second and just kind of the information that was just shared? Do you understand it enough to just do a regroup?
No, I think we just move on.
Okay, well, thank you for your input, and that is really cool. Okay, so anyways, underneath, sometimes you'll see other fats, right? So the unsaturated fats, which on this label it doesn't show, but sometimes it does show. And unsaturated fats, which may sometimes be listed also as monounsaturated or polyunsaturated, those are found in many plant-based foods like nuts and seeds and avocado, as we mentioned earlier, but they're also in vegetable oils. That's one I totally try to avoid. I remember the difference of this, because here's my little tip. The ones that have the "un" in the word, that reminds me that they're not harmful to me. And the line with the the line without the "un" in it are the ones that I stay away from or keep them very, very low. Um, Anybody have some tips as to how they remember which fats are healthier than the others when looking at labels? I'd love to hear about it. So, what this part of the label doesn't tell you in terms of fat is the source of the fat, right? So 10 grams of fat from an avocado is not the same as 10 grams of fat from a fried snack, right? I don't even have an example, but something fried. Essential fats, those are different fats, right? Like omega 3s. Do we have them out here? Oh, yes, we do. We have some hemp hearts. So, this one, those aren't usually listed, but they're so critical for brain and heart health. I mean, they would be listed in these, but if you have something like this, it might not listed. So pay attention to the type of fat and aim for a healthy whole food source. That's what I say. So the next section on here is cholesterol. And the cholesterol on the label comes from animal-based products like eggs and cheese and meats and plant-based foods. They don't contain cholesterol. Yeah, I just said that, and it's true. So if you're eating plant-based like me, then this should always say 0 on the package where the word is listed. And let's see if I'm right here. Cholesterol 0. So that is one of the many reasons why plant-based eating is healthier for your heart and for your body. Hello, Marilyn. Welcome. I just saw her pop on here. And so now we're going to move on to the next one I have listed here is sodium. So this number shows you how much salt is in a serving, but salt isn't the only source of sodium. So it can come from preservatives or other additives in whatever it is that you're eating. But unfortunately, the label doesn't tell you if you're about to eat naturally occurring sodium, and that would be found in vegetables like celery. Celery is one that I always think of, or if it's added sodium, right, which is beyond what's natural in foods. I just want to mention that Rip Esselstyn has a great YouTube video where he talks in depth about salt, actually, and it's really, really great. And according to him, you don't want the number of sodium milligrams to be a higher number than the number of calories. So let's say if your nutrition label says it has 240 calories, you don't want your sodium number to be more than 240 milligrams. So he says it's different for condiments, and you should watch his video if you want to know more about the sodium in foods. Todd, would you share the link in the chat for everybody in case you haven't seen it, or maybe you have and it would be a good reminder?
I'll put it up right now.
Okay, very good, very good. And I just want to say what sodium is in here, which I haven't really shared. So the total, I'm going to go back for a second. Total fat in these is 5 grams. 1 is saturated fat. Trans is 0. The cholesterol here is 0. The sodium is 0. The carbohydrates are what we're going to be working on next. And so I won't go ahead, but in case you were wondering. So before we switch out of sodium, just know that high sodium intake, if you don't already know this, it can lead to high blood pressure and other health issues. So if you're looking to reduce your sodium intake, then focus on whole, minimally processed foods. And Todd, you are one that can vouch for the sodium and blood pressure issues because that has been something that you had to deal with.
That's true.
And do you agree that bringing down the sodium had helped you, or do you know what
I
really helped
agree
you?
that changing my diet entirely probably helped, and I'm sure the reduction in the sodium I was taking in was probably pretty significant also.
Yeah. So if any of you have noticed any changes like that, put it in the chat. I'd love to hear about your situation or anything that you may have learned by being aware and making some of those changes. So, anyways, we're going to go to the next line on here. And that's the total carbohydrates. For this package, it says 8 grams. Of course, we're talking per serving. And carbohydrates is a big one. It really is. Carbohydrates are our body's main source of energy, no doubt. Now, you've probably heard all kinds of things about carbohydrates, especially when it comes to things like weight loss, or low carb diets and things like that, but not all carbohydrates are the same. So you want to focus, or I should say, what I like to focus on are the complex carbs, right? Those carbohydrates are things that are coming from whole grains, potatoes, beans, lentils, legumes, vegetables, and fruits. And these are packed with fiber and nutrients. So the total carbohydrate number includes on the package, right? Did you know this? It includes all sugars, starches, and fibers in a serving. But this isn't the full story either. Unfortunately, this section doesn't spell out the amount of simple carbs like refined sugars versus complex carbs. Those are the ones you want, remember? So, any questions so far? Oh, we've got Jill D saying, thanks for that info, Todd. Good job, honey. So, anyways, the section usually lists it as total carbohydrates, which mine says right here, total carbohydrates, right? And then a breakdown of dietary fiber and total sugars, which mine says dietary fiber 6 grams and total sugars 1 gram. And then it goes into some other stuff. So, let's just talk about the dietary fiber because that's the next one in line here. And dietary fiber is the good stuff that supports digestion and it helps us feel satiated. Foods that are high in fiber are often healthier overall. You know, the standard American diet tends to have a very low fiber. A lot of people have issues with digestion. And then a lot of times you go to the doctor and I know they say you have to add in fiber. And most of them say a supplement, but you could just get it by the food. So anyways, staying on track here on the label, total sugars, which is also under the carbohydrates and under the fiber, includes naturally occurring sugars and then an added sugars line, which should be listed right below total sugars. There was a time when added sugars was not its own line. And I do remember that label change. Anyone remember that? It used to just say sugars. And then eventually people made enough of a stink or, you know, somehow it did get heard from people and added sugars made their own label or their own line, I should say. So naturally occurring sugars, those are found in whole, unprocessed foods. They're found in fruits, they're found in vegetables, and in some grains. These sugars come bundled up. They come bundled up right in this little package with fiber and vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and all these wonderful things. And that slows digestion. It helps our body process the sugar in a steady, balanced way, right? So, for example, the fructose in a whole apple, and I happen to have a whole apple right here. The fructose in a whole apple, let me move the pear out of the way. It doesn't hit your bloodstream the same way as table sugar, which I should have had over here, because the apple's fiber moderates how quickly it's absorbed. And that is like part of the trick here. So added sugars, on the other hand, which I don't have sugar, but if we had sugars, those are sugars that manufacturers are adding into the food. So there are often in a form of sucrose, which is a table sugar. You may have seen it listed as high fructose corn syrup or other sweeteners. And I guess I won't talk about I've got a little list here of some stuff, but we'll talk about that a little later. So they're used to enhance the flavors. They want to use them to extend the shelf life or improve the texture of the products, but they don't provide any nutritional value beyond empty calories. Everything we don't want, right? And they can lead to spikes in our blood sugar level. People with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, have to watch out for weight gain and increased risk of chronic conditions like what I just mentioned, the type 2 diabetes or heart disease and inflammation. Oh my gosh, which I am always combating. So inflammation is a big one for me to pay attention to. So the added sugar section doesn't differentiate between natural sugars like those from, say, maple syrup, which I've got right here, or dates, and refined sugars like corn syrup or other additives with names that don't sound or look anything like sugar. So you really need to check the ingredients list to figure that out. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But right now, I want to move on to the next line, which is protein. Now, I want to say, yeah, it is. I was going to say sometimes they don't always have the exact same lines, but this one does have a protein. It says 11 grams. And so I want to ask a question about protein. Who can tell me how many types of protein there are? Anyone know how many types of protein there are? I'm waiting for a minute. So while we're waiting for that, I'm just going to say that protein is so important for muscle repair, immune function, and just so much more than we can go into today. So as plant-based eaters, like me and maybe you, we know that you can get all the protein that you need from plants. It's really true. You can get it from lentils and tofu and tempeh and beans and quinoa, and the list goes on. But if you're looking at processed foods, though, then you have to be aware of the protein. But always know that the label doesn't always tell you everything, like I keep saying. So what you won't see here is the quality of that protein, right? You ever think about that? So before I give the answer, I want to see if there are anybody. Let's see. So the question is, what do you mean by types? Do you want to answer that? Hey, apple a day. Nice to have you here. So Core Scorpy asked, what types, what do I mean by types? If I wasn't clear, is there a way that you could clarify that? No, just the two there. Well, okay, let's just, yes, he's agrees. Google agrees. Okay. Well, anyways, I'm glad you worked that out. Apple a day says primarily 7 types of protein. Woo. Okay. And she also says hello. Well, the ones that I know about that I want to talk about are that there are 2 types of protein. And maybe I'm wrong. If there are 7, wow, I would love to hear about them. But the 2 that I know of are, there are the complete proteins and the incomplete proteins. So the complete proteins, which contain all 9 essential amino acids, they come from plant-based sources like quinoa, soy, buckwheat, hemp seeds, chia seeds, all that good stuff. And then the incomplete proteins are missing 1 or more of the essential amino acids, but that's not a problem when you are eating a variety of whole plant-based foods. So it used to be that pairing some of your foods like beans and rice were necessary to give you all 9 essential amino acids to form a complete protein. At least that's what we used to think. But when you eat a variety, I'm talking about lots of different plants, then and including beans and lentils, which are also plant foods, then you will get all 9 essential amino acids. So I do want to hear about the 7, if there's anything there. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, according to Core Scorpy, there are 7 types of and Apple a day, 7 types of protein, and Google, by the way,
Okay.
and they are antibodies, contractile proteins, enzymes, hormonal proteins, structural
Wow.
proteins, storage proteins, and transport proteins.
Wow. So I stand to be corrected then. And right?
Well, I think it's a different. You're talking about different definitions of the word type.
Well, we weren't clear when,
That's true.
I say we because we're doing this together, but I guess I wasn't clear on the ones that I was talking about today in asking that question, but I didn't realize that. And so I just learned something. And so hopefully, if you're watching, you did too. But if you follow the way that I was trying to do this, hopefully you understand why I said two. Go ahead and read Apple a Days for us, honey.
So Apple a Day says Francis Moore, the author of Diet for a Small Planet, was
Yes.
influential in spreading the misinformation about
Yes.
needing to eat corn with beans,
Yes.
etc.
That is so true. Yes. And I was aware of that. She mentioned that it was one
One of
of
her
her
biggest regrets of her
regrets.
life.
Yes. So that's why I wanted to bring it up because some people might actually still think that that's a thing, but it's not. It's not. You can get it all from eating a variety of plants. Um,
And if I'm not mistaken, she actually did go public trying to correct that information later.
yeah. Yeah. So you can get plenty of protein from plant-based foods, but when reading this label, you just need to remember that you're only getting part of the story, and that's what I want to focus on. Really, is what's going on here in the label, and just to have some kind of an understanding of it. So, all right, um, go ahead and read that.
So Apple Day says she did go public often and loudly. She tried to turn the card around.
Oh, yes. Well, good for her. We do the best we can with the information that we have, and then as we grow and learn, it's nice to know when people are humbled and are wanting to say, hey, what I was saying wasn't correct, and now I've learned this, and this is what it is. So, anyways. Finally, I want to talk about what's under that. Now, I want to show my label again because we're going to talk about vitamins and minerals at the bottom of the nutrition facts. And so for this label, and this might not be good to see, I don't know if it's very clear, but we went all the way down to here, and it's kind of like a dark line. And then this section next is the section that I want to talk about. And it's an interesting section, right? It's vitamins and minerals at the bottom. This section highlights a few of the nutrients on this package, like vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. But many other essential nutrients like magnesium or zinc aren't always listed. I do want to show a couple examples of that because it's pretty crazy when it comes to the differences. And so let me just say, this one, right? We just said it had the 4, right? This one right here, this is organic untoasted sushi nori. This is the most I have ever seen. Look at this list here. Can you see it? It's there's the bottom of the protein all the way down here. This whole section. The one I just read had 4 lines, which is still great. It had vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. That was the end of it. This one keeps going down with vitamin A and C, E, K, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, vitamin B6. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I'm not going to read them all, but manganese, copper, zinc, and a ton more. And so that's what I mean, where different packages are going to show various differences. Now, the hemp parts, that's another one that I thought was pretty good. It's this whole section. It's a little bit less. The nori sheets were my grand wow. This one, it has, let's see, it's got quite a list here too. And some of them, like, gosh, I'm trying to think where that one was, where it just had one. Do you remember what that was? Oh, yeah, it's this one. So in the barbecue sauce, it's a condiment, but you could just see it's got 1 potassium, one little one little guy. So, it just pays to pay attention and understand that not all labels are alike, especially when it comes to the nutrients and vitamins. So just remember, whole plant-based foods are packed with naturally occurring vitamins and minerals. So the closer your food is to its natural state, the better off I think that we will be. So has anyone else noticed anything like that? Apple a day. Oh, go ahead, read that.
Apple a Day says there are a lot less labels in her house since switching to whole food plant exclusive. Anyone else experiencing that too?
Yes, yes. I have to say we do too. Although we have stuff in here, we have several different people, and so we have to accommodate for that. But even in things like greens, these are packaged, and or carrots. I've got these carrots here. I just want to take a second to show that these also, if and I don't always buy them in a bag, but I did this on purpose this time. Just to show that they have a label too sometimes. And so anyways, it's just to bring awareness, of course. So I appreciate and I'm happy that you are not really dealing with labels. And our food labels in Canada are different than in US. Not much, but there are some differences. And you know what? You're absolutely right. And somewhere in here, gosh, I wish I could remember where it was. We did have a label that said made in Canada. But at any rate, if I come across it, I will bring that up. So while the nutrition facts do give you an idea of some of the nutrients in the food, it leaves a lot of really important information out. So that's where the ingredients list comes in. So I have a question for everyone. Does anyone know what determines the order that food ingredients are listed in? So if you do, put it in the chat. I'm going to take a sip of water. And that is going back to, well, this one isn't which is good. You don't want a long list of ingredients, but usually underneath the nutrition facts, which is kind of in the US, I should clarify, in the US, it's in its own border. And then usually the ingredients is underneath. Depending, like a lot of the stuff that we have has one ingredients. I tried to get some that didn't, just for examples, like this one. This has a long ingredients list. This is something that Todd recently tried in his trying to get rid of cheese and finding something that works for him. He decided to try this. And so here we go, the box, and then here is the ingredients. So anyways, that's where you'll find that. And so this part of the label is where you're going to find the real truth about what's inside your food, I believe. I personally like to look at this part first when I'm looking at labels on products in the store, because if I don't like what I see in the ingredients list, then it doesn't really matter to me what's in the nutrition facts section. So if it were up to me, I would I would reverse them, but I just go to the bottom part. And so let's see. Of course, Scorpy says higher amounts are listed first, maybe. Good. Yes, good. And is it else? ELS?
Or else?
Else? Welcome. The largest amount is first and on down from there. Jill D says, yes, the amount of items determines the order in the US. Scorpy, ingredients to me are the most important section in the nutrition facts. So we have something in common. I know with labels, they can say zero trans fat, yet contain hydrogenated ingredients. Yes, very misleading. That's why we have to be detectives and why I wanted to talk about this today. Tanya says, I always check the ingredients list first as well. Oh, good job. Yeah, it makes more sense, right? At least it does to me. And Apple a Day says, I'm the same. I look at the ingredients first, and it influences me more than the nutrition label. The first, and then else, the first pronunciation. Okay, thank you for the correction and welcome. So this part is so important because it reveals exactly what's inside your food down to every single ingredient, mostly, right? And believe me, there are lots of ingredients out there that can be sneaky, made in a lab by a scientist, or just plain old bad for your health. So I, I want to see if there are any other answers to the question that we read. Oh, hey, Kenneth is here. Hi, welcome. Good to have you here. So if you didn't already know, ingredients in foods are listed in order based on weight or amount, right? At least here in the US it is. And so that means the first ingredient is the largest amount, which we had people saying. So we've got a smart group here. And here in the US, the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, they sometimes say, requires ingredients in foods and over-the-counter medicines to be listed in this order, right? That's not the case for prescription medications, which we're not going to get into. But just to mention, prescription medications, they're listed where the active ingredients are listed in alphabetical order. And I thought that was really interesting. So I did want to just throw that in there in case you weren't aware of that. Here we're talking about labels. You think labels are all the same, and they're actually not. So I just want to say, Jill D, I also use the Bobby approved app that shows a good or a bad product. And then if it shows okay based on his research, then I check the ingredients for yourself. Oh, I'm not aware of the Bobby approved app. We're going to have to check that out. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's always nice to have some kind of extra person like kind of with you, right? And helping you through everything. So I want to talk about sodium. Sodium, oh my gosh, beyond the natural sodium that's found in foods like the celery I mentioned earlier, there are more than 20 different ingredients that might be added, which are essentially a form of sodium. So I'm going to be reading some stuff. I hope that I can pronounce everything correctly, because we're going off track here in terms of real food pronunciation, which would be like apple, orange, pear. But the most common ones are sodium chloride. That's just a fancy word for table salt. Monosodium glutamate. You guys ever heard of that? MSG, they call it. In the 80s, it was a big thing, I remember, and everyone caught on to that and didn't really want that in their food. Sodium bicarbonate, that's another one. People know it as baking soda. We cook with baking soda. I clean with baking soda. And disodium phosphate, that one is a chemical. So there are a whole bunch of others that usually contain the word sodium in them, but you should also look for ingredients that you might be able to pronounce, like soy sauce or tamari, as these are usually the higher sources of sodium. And these can all be hidden sources of sodium. And we already know that too much sodium can wreak havoc on our health, right? So don't get me wrong. I know we need sodium, but too much sodium or the wrong kinds of sodium, like the chemical versions or whatever, are not what I personally want in my body. And I know that it can be harmful. So I just wanted to talk about that. And then we can mention added sugars, right? We mentioned added sugars earlier. You'll find added sugars under other names, though. It doesn't just say added sugars, right? You'll find it like fructose, high fructose corn syrup, even just corn syrup. You'll see it listed as sucrose, glucose, dextrose, agave nectar, even things like fruit juice concentrates or maple syrup or date sugar or monk fruit, molasses, and other healthy sounding foods. So you may see ingredients like rice syrup, barley malt syrup, or crazy chemical sounding names like xylose and sorbitol maltodextrin. That's a mouthful to say sugar, right? Stevia, that's one I hear a lot. I think people are familiar with. Um, eth- Erythritol, I think is how you say it. Sodium cyclamate, cyclamate. Okay, aspartame, uh, sucralose. Well, sucralose is basically Splenda, you know. So I know when I was younger and we used to go to a restaurant, sometimes you see the little packets, you know, the pink, the white, and the blue. And one of those was Splenda, I think. Yeah. And so don't be fooled. These are just other names for sugars. They're all sneaky sugars. They add up really quickly and they don't offer any nutritional value. So I do want to clarify that I mentioned some sugars that are natural and I use them like date sugar or date syrup or molasses. But the point in this conversation is when something already has sugar in it naturally, there may also be additional sugars added on top of what's already in the food. So I just wanted to make sure that that was really clear. Anybody have any other fancy sugar names that they've heard of that they want to share? Give me a tongue twister. Go ahead and put it in the chat. So we can move on to artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners like aspartame and saccharin might seem like they're helping you avoid sugars, right? That was a big thing for a while when some of these first came out, but they're actually harmful to your health and they can disrupt your gut health. Gosh, so many people nowadays are aware of the microbiome and we just want to make it nice. This is not going to help it. So it also disrupts metabolism because they're manufactured chemicals. Asulfame, I think is how you say it. Asulfame potassium is another one to watch out for. Other ingredients that you may see include mannitol or xylitol. I know people in my circle talk about xylitol. It's a sugar alcohol used in the sugar-free products, right? Neotame. I mean, there's so many. I could just go on and on. You could Google it. And I actually have a sheet here that lists all kinds of things about sugars. And I'm just not going to bore you with it, but there's so many. That's just to name a few. And artificial colors and flavors and natural flavors. So those are all things that you want to watch out for. So, so let's see what we have. Core Scorpy says a fancy name for sugar is gummies. Yes, I would agree with you. And John Jew says organic sugar cane. With a question, organic sugar cane, and then BS. What is? So I'm not sure if you could give me a clarification on what you're asking. I'd be happy to come back and see if we could talk about that. So I want you to also look out for added colors. Have you guys seen added colors? Oh my gosh, here in the US, we have so many. Red 40, yellow 5, blue 1. And I did mention earlier, red dye number 3, thank goodness, was just kicked out, right? And how just the other day we finally banned it in the United States. Oh my gosh, I am so happy about that. But I kind of wish they would have just done away with all the dyes. But, you know, I am grateful for what we finally accomplished. You know, other countries, and you may be in one of those countries watching with us today, you don't even allow them in your food. So these dyes can cause all kinds of problems, allergies, hyperactivity for children, and you know they have potential for links to cancer. It's just awful that it's allowed in our food. And the same is true of artificial flavorings. It's in the name artificial, meaning it's not a flavor from a real food. It's a synthetic additive. And to make sure that something tastes a certain way, and they're usually made from chemicals that you wouldn't normally consume in a whole food. So And natural flavors, right? These are mystery ingredients. Oh my gosh, natural flavors, right? So that only needs to be derived from natural sources like plants. It doesn't mean they're made entirely from a natural source at all, which means that they could include a whole bunch of unnatural things in them too and call them natural, because the contents of natural flavors, unfortunately, are not required by law to be listed here in the US at this time that we're talking. So it's anybody's guess what's really in them. I used to purchase a brand of sparkling water called LaCroix, and I butch that name, but I know what it is, and maybe you have had it before. And I liked it because at the time, I don't actually purchase that anymore, but I liked it because it only had water and natural flavors. Da, da, da. And then one day I was questioning, what exactly is a natural flavor? And there we go. So I just want to take a second here and say, hey, Mona, so glad to have you here. Okay, I got to go back up. Oh, Nan says, please don't bore us, Jennifer. Okay, John Ju says, sugar is not good for you except whole foods. Organic sugar cane can fool our health, yes or no? I personally don't need to add any sugar, even sugar cane, to my food. I like to use something that isn't processed, that's just, if I need a sweetener, I would just use a date, or try to enjoy the fruit, or maple syrup, but that's totally a personal decision. And thank you for the question. Okay, so Nan says, please. Oh, I've already read that. Let's see. Course Scorpy is answering John Ju. Everything you put into your body is broken down into glucose. Yes, sugar, good for you. Okay, so anyways, Tanya, Google just told me that red dye 3 is still legal in Canada. You're kidding. Oh, okay. Maybe write a letter to somebody, huh?
I think they probably know.
They probably know.
Somebody probably knows.
Yeah. She says, I'm shocked. I'm shocked too. We usually ban things before you guys. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
U.S. is usually last in
oh
line.
my gosh, but it took us forever. And you know what's really interesting? I don't really go out shopping, but Todd and I happened to be out last night just because we wanted to actually go. I wanted to go hiking, but we didn't end up going hiking because it was the end of the day. So we went to this outdoor mall just to walk around for a little bit. And we went into a store and I saw a bottle of, was it sprinkles? And I said, oh my gosh, it was like on this thing they were putting out for Valentine's Day. And it said red dye number 3. And I said, I thought it was banned. So what Todd had said to me is, it's banned for anything new coming into the country, but it's still here. So we do still need to be careful and see if you're, may end up buying it. Anyways, okay, so talking about preservatives. Some preservatives, oh, this is a hard one. BHA and BHT. I'm going to try to say BHA.
Butylated.
Oh, thank you. Why don't you say it? Can you help me out here? BHA is butylated hydroxyanol. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Butylated hydroxyanol, and BHT, butylated hydroxytoluene. Toluene. Can you even believe these are things that we need to think about? Those are synthetic antioxidants. Did you know that? Those are used to preserve fats and oils in products and are also linked to potential carcinogen effects. So there you go. Sodium benzoate, I should say, sodium nitrate, and sodium nitrite, potassium sorbate, calcium propionate, sulfur dioxide, sorbic acid, propyl gallate. Oh my goodness, these are all common preservatives in packaged foods. And these can be hormonal disruptors. They might even be carcinogenic when consumed over time. And salt can be a preservative as well. And it's found in fermented food, for example. So, I mean, that one I'd take if I had to over the others. So you might also see ingredients like xanthan gum, which I can pronounce, gar gum, or carrageenan. Have you heard of that one? I'd love to hear if you've heard of that one, because that's a new one for me that I recently heard of. And anyone know what that is? I kind of want to give you a second before I tell you what it is. So anyways, just keep writing in and hopefully it'll pop up for us if you have an idea. But I'll just tell you, these are thickening agents and they might cause all kinds of problems. And I have to say might, but Agar is how you say it, is a natural plant-based thickener. Pectin, that's another one. That's a natural carbohydrate that's found in fruit. And if your packaged food needs a thickener, maybe look for those two options if you need one, or even better, just choose whole foods that don't need preservatives or thickeners. So I want to read a few things, but is there anything in the chat that came in about that? No. Okay.
So you want to talk about what it is?
Yeah, I do. I want to pull this paper out here. And I just want to read, if I can find where it is. Okay. Carrageenan, this additive is a stabilizing and emulsifying agent found in many food products. It is extracted from seaweed and processed with alkaline substances. Unfortunately, it can cause digestive problems such as bloating, irritable bowel disease, or IBD, and inflammation. And while the FDA here in the US has approved it, there is much debate on if it's really, truly safe to eat. I just had to share that. And then I want to also share about gar gum. Gar gum is a long-chain carbohydrate commonly found in ice cream and sauces and soups. Gar gum binds or thickens food. Some studies have shown gar gum can help you feel full and eat less, but some studies show gar gum to have adverse effects on your body. Too much can swell up and block your esophagus. Oh my gosh, that is super scary, isn't it? So to prevent this, the FDA placed strict guidelines on how much of the ingredients can be added to the food to reduce the risk of harmful side effects. I mean, this front and back page is just full of things like that. And I just wanted to share a couple of those. So scary stuff, but you need to, I think it's more powerful if we have the tools to understand what we're looking for. So there's also undisclosed ingredients. Be especially cautious if there are vague terms like natural flavors, which we already mentioned, and one we didn't mention, spices, right? This has spices in it. Well, what does that mean? So these terms can mask a variety of additives that include artificial flavorings, preservatives, and even chemicals that the manufacturer doesn't want to or doesn't need to disclose. There are laws where they don't have to tell us every little thing. And if nobody pushes on it, then it will just continue to stay the same. So now, here's another important part of reading food labels that some people overlook, which is organic versus non-organic ingredients. So this can make a huge difference in the quality of your food and in many cases your health. When you see an ingredient that's labeled or listed as organic, it means it has been grown or produced without synthetic pesticides, fertilizers, or genetically modified organisms, also known as GMOs. That is not to say that it's pesticide-free, though. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, United States Department of Agriculture, certifies, or USDA they say, certifies organic, quote unquote, right, farms, but they're still allowed to use organic pesticides and herbicides which means it's still stuff designed to kill other stuff like insects or plants. So it's not perfect, but it's probably the better, the best choice that we have. And so that's why I say wash your food. And if you haven't seen my video on how to clean your food, go check it out. It's called Reduce Toxins, How to Clean Your Produce, so that it's safe to eat. And hopefully that will be helpful for you. It was from another live, I think we did back in, was that in November? I think it was in November. So I want to talk about one last thing about packaging. You may see all kinds of exciting claims on the front of the package, things that say, I don't even know if we have any that say natural. I don't see if these are low sodium. I'll just mention those. No added sugar, fat free, right? All on the front, plastered all on the front. We don't have the right kind of packaging, do we? No added sugar. There's one. No added sugar. Okay, I wanted to find one. It goes on and on though. But so read the ingredients and the nutrition facts, because the front of the package is where the clever marketers add enticing words and claims that if you read the ingredients and nutrition facts, you might not be quite as happy about the front of the package. It might not be as great as you might have thought before you turned it over. So, but let's talk about what about things that don't come in a package, right? Or a box or a bag or a pouch. Like I said at the beginning, I do a lot of my eating from the produce aisle. So I've got a question for you guys. Did you know that fresh produce also has an important label? Has anyone seen this? Do you know what it says? Right? Put your answers in the chat. I would love to hear about this. I've known about it. This was new for Todd, and so it's been kind of a fun discussion and fun thing to talk about. So, okay. Well, when you look at things like here, I'm going to hold up some. This is a pear. This is an apple. We've got some onions here. We've got bananas. I've got a pomegranate that needs to be eaten. Here's another apple, just a different kind, and a bell pepper, right? So these that I pointed out have these stickers on them, and they're called PLU codes. So it's short for price lookup codes, and they're not just for the checkout scanners. They actually tell you how your produce was grown. And so anybody adding anything? Okay, so anybody about the labels?
Most the comments are labels indicate organic and traditional.
Okay, yes, good one. Who said that? Oh, Mona.
Mona and Core Scorpy.
And Core Scorpy. Okay, so if you look at the labels, and I can only speak for what I have here in the US. I don't know if in other places it's different. So, if it isn't what you have in your area, then you'll have to research that. But I'm just going to talk about what I know here. So if you look at the labels, you should see a 4 or 5 digit code. And it's usually somewhere right on the label. There's lots of stuff on the label, but there's a 4 and 5 digit code. The first number is the most important one and is the key to understanding how your produce was grown, right? So if you see a 5 digit code that starts with a 9, and some of you may already know this, that means that your produce is certified organic. 5 digit code starting with a 9 means your produce is certified organic. Okay, and I want to stop there for a minute because, and they say it that way because, we were talking about, I have a couple of apples here. Well, they are 5 digit codes that start with a 9, but the last 4 digits are different. And that may be because, where they came from, or we don't know. So don't worry about that part. We're just going to worry about the other part, which is if there's a 9 in front of it and it's 5 digits, that one in front is organic. So if you see a 4 or a 5 digit code, that starts with the number 3, then that means it's not organic and it was electronically pasteurized using ionizing radiation. Irradiation, right? Did I say that correctly? So what that is because I was like, what in the world is that? But that is I should ask if anyone knows what that is, but I'll just go ahead and tell you. That is a process that uses high energy radiation to treat the food, medical products, and other items. So it's basically exposes objects to ionizing radiation. Those are things like gamma rays or X-rays or electronic beams. And the reason for that is to kill bacteria. It supposedly reduces spoilage, or it's meant to sterilize products. And I'm like, I've never had that. I started checking everything. Oh my gosh. This right here, this pomegranate that I reluctantly bought because it wasn't organic, but we couldn't find any in our area at the time, has a 3. It's a number 3. So now I understand what in the world that means. And I was less than pleased, but at least I know what it means, right? So if you see a code, any comments or anything? Do you see anything?
The 3, I think, came as a shock to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a shock to me. And I hope that I was clear in my, falling over some of those words. But yeah, is anybody saying anything about that? Knew about
Mona did not know. I don't think Core Scorpy know, and was a little surprised. Jill D did not know about the 3 either.
Not about the 3, but I see it looks like, and the 9 people knew about.
Yeah, everyone's familiar with 9, but the 3, not so much.
Okay, so now if you see a code that starts with the 4, what does that mean? The 4 means that it was grown conventionally using synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, right? So here's the scary one. If the code has 5 digits and starts with the number 8, that means it's a GMO, genetically modified food, genetically modified organism is the translation. So, which is now sometimes listed as bioengineered food because people were catching on to what GMOs are and they didn't want them in their food. So they changed it to bioengineered. So it's like, oh my gosh. So there's a catch to this. This code isn't used as often anymore. So you can make sure to look at the other labels or tags that come on the produce, right? And if there is a detectable amount of bioengineering going on, it's required to say so in writing or as a symbol. The symbol usually is something that shows a capital B and an E. And what's interesting is it can also be part of like a sunny looking happy face. I was like, what does that mean? What does that look like? I need to see what that is. So I printed out some to show you. And yep. Let me see if you can see this. Is this clear, Todd? Okay, so bioengineer. Here are some of the labels. See how it says BE? There's like this is a sunshine, and in it looks like a happy face. Or, some of these, whoops, wait, I'm going backwards. This one, happy face. This one is like the background is beautiful. And so what is that? What if you didn't notice it or you just thought it was a cute thing? I mean, to me, I felt a little deceived. And so I just wanted to bring your awareness. I personally have never seen this on a product, but I've also never looked for it. Now I will look for it. Even if I'm not buying that, I'm just curious now. Bioengineered. And you can see a better picture if you go online and just put that in. You'll be able to see that as well. And so I want to stop for a minute and talk about, I was like, we don't have anything in our house that says bioengineered. and which is great, right? But then I was like, oh, we have some food that we bought a few years ago during COVID that wasn't really food that we would buy, but we got it either free or we bought it or whatever, and just in case that you couldn't get anything. And so I went over there and I looked, son of a gun. It says bioengineered, and I want to show you. So I have these premium crackers, whole grain topped with sea salt crackers, and we also had a box of the original. Okay, and let me see. One side is Spanish, so I got to make sure that I'm looking at the right side. But on the side that is English, it's got the nutrition facts that we talked about, right? The vitamins and nutrients here. And then the list of ingredients has to go over here because it's quite big. And then underneath that, it says BHT added to packaging material to produce freshness. We just talked about BHT. And then under that, it says contains wheat, which wasn't enough to put up here, that we put it here. And then it talks about where it was distributed. And then right here, ingredients derived from a bioengineered source. Oh, this is not food. This is not food. And it's been in our stash for what? How many years now? 5 years? I mean,
it will probably look the same in another 50 years.
Yes. And here's another one. This was left here. Somebody left this here during COVID. I think maybe one of the kids, or I don't know where. But this is another example I just wanted to show you really quickly. Quaker instant oatmeal original. And I mean, they can't see it, but it's dusty. And it also says the nutrition facts, everything like that we talked about, right? And then underneath, I thought it was interesting that I wanted to share the ingredients. Whole grain oats, calcium carbonate, salt, reduced iron. What does that even mean? Reduced iron, that's an ingredient.
How can reduced iron be an ingredient?
I don't know. Does anyone know? I would love to hear if anyone knows reduced iron. So, you just never know. And so I just wanted to share that. Another thing that can also hide the fact about the bioengineering or other things is, they can put it behind a QR code or on a website so it tells you to go online for more information. So if you don't see a code like the ones that we talked about here, if it's not spelled out in plain words or it doesn't have a symbol, maybe you shouldn't eat it. But I did want to show you, going back to our perfect examples here on our crackers, there is, if you can see that, that's a little code right there. That's the code, the QR code. And so we tried them. I think this Quaker Oats has the QR code also. It says Smart Label on this one. It looks a little bit different. Whoops. So it's down here. And we went ahead and pulled it up. And Todd, would you share what we pulled up? Yeah. Oh, okay. So, okay. He's giving me his phone to show you. So we went ahead and did the Quaker Oats, and we scanned that thing, and then it brought us here. So you could do this on your own phone. I don't know. Can you see that? Is that clear? It's really hard to see. I'll just read it to you. But it says Smart Label. It's got a picture of the oatmeal, and then it's got these little tabs, and it talks about nutrition facts and all kinds of stuff. And so you may find in there if it is bioengineered. And too bad I can't show a better picture there, but you get the idea. So another thing that I just kind of wanted to talk about, going back to the fresh produce, an example would be bananas. So it seems like our, standard bananas, there are all kinds of bananas, I know, but this is what's common here in the US. It's not the only banana we can get, but This is the one that we're going to use as an example. So bananas all have a code. When I talk about all, I mean this kind of 4011. Remember I showed you on the apples, sometimes it's a 9 with whatever different ones, but bananas are all 4011. Now, if it's organic, it will have the 9 in front of it. So 94011. If it's grown conventionally, they'll have the code that is 34011 or 44011, or they'll just say 4011. If they have a code that says 84011, then it's a GMO banana. Did I mess up something there?
Just remember, if it starts with a 3,
Uh,
it means it's been subjected to radiation.
That's right. That's right. And I did say that earlier. So this particular label here, it says organic. It's got all kinds of fairly traded bananas. Ecuador is where it comes from. And then at the very, very bottom, teeny tiny, you might not be able to see it. It says 94011. Okay. So anybody have any comments or information? Yeah.
Mona did have a question.
Sure.
She'd like to know exactly what flavors really means.
Yeah. Good question. I wish I knew. And it's just something to be aware of because we don't always know what flavors mean because we in the US are not required to know because it's not required to spell that out on the label. And so maybe if you're just aware that when you see that, if you don't have a clear understanding of what that is, then you can decide if you're willing to ingest that or not. For me, I take that as a no, thank you. So yeah, good question though, really. So something else I want to talk about briefly here is, and I know a lot of you are aware of this, but if you're not aware of this already, a lot of produce is now being coated with products like a peel. They're also now starting to call it organic peel or sufesca, I think is how you say it. These are manufactured coatings, if you're not familiar, that are applied to the fruits and vegetables to slow spoilage, make them appear fresher longer, even if inside they're not fresh. Okay? I don't get it. And yes, unfortunately, they can even be sprayed on our beautiful organic produce and it does not wash off. So the companies that make these products are very secretive about them, and many stores don't even know if it's on their produce that they're selling or not. You know, they don't even know. Those that do know usually aren't super excited about it. They don't really want to let you know. And for me, I don't want this on my food. And so I try to avoid it at all costs. So I go to a store that has a sign that says, we don't, sell a peel. We don't do that. But I go to other stores too, like Costco, and the store that doesn't sell a peel is the Natural Grocer that has the big sign. And I go to Sprouts and I go to some other stores that are found across the US. But I called Costco a while back. I called their corporate office and I wanted to find out if they used a peel on their produce because I get big bags of greens and, all kinds of stuff in that refrigerated section. And the lady that I spoke to said she didn't know even what that was. She had to do some research. She did call me back within a week. And she said she had to go through chains of people. And she said, we currently at that time do not use a peel. And I was like, oh, that is so great. She followed that up with, if we decide to change, we don't have to notify the consumer. We don't have to put it on our packaging. So if it's a concern for me that I should call back every so often if I want and have them continue to do the digging. I was like, okay. I also in Sprouts Market asked the guy in the produce section, do you guys spray a peel on? Do you use a peel? He didn't know what I was talking about. And so I said, okay, he ended up going in the back and talking to like his manager, and that person was talking to the person that delivers it. And he came out, and I was still in the store. He came out a little while later, and he came up to me and he said, I just want you to know that, my manager, a couple people up the levels, they didn't even know what it was. And that it was like the driver or the people that deliver it would be the ones that would have some knowledge. And they called and they think that it didn't have it, but nobody was certain. So one other thing that you may want to look at is the country of origin. So this can be found on the packages as well as in the produce section at the grocery store. So for me, I find it on the price per pound labels in the fresh produce. And I really like knowing so that I can make the choice based on what I think is better for me. Like, for example, if I purchase apples that are both organic, let's say I have two choices. They're both organic, but one is sourced from they're sourced from two different countries. Like one is from the USA and maybe another is from a different country. Well, I might choose the one from the USA because I know the organic protocol versus one coming from another country. I might have a different requirement for what is organic. And so, that's something that I like to pay attention to. And I'll give you another example. Garlic. Garlic grown in China is reportedly heavily fumigated with methyl bromide, and that's to get rid of bugs. Methyl bromide is a very toxic and exposure to high concentrations can cause damage to the respiratory and central nervous system in the body. It can even cause death for some. So you might think garlic from China is something that you don't need to worry about, but according to a variety of sources, most of the garlic sold in the US does come from China, even though a lot of people think it mostly comes from California. So, side note, fresh garlic cloves sometimes have their roots removed because that helps reduce dirt and soil contaminations, while it also lowers its weight, right? So for shipping and things, it makes it less expensive to ship. And this is commonly also associated with garlic from China, where regulations require the roots to be removed. So if you're buying garlic at the grocery store and it doesn't have the roots, check to see where it comes from, right? I also recently, and I don't know if this is a fact, I didn't check the fact, but I heard that garlic that's really, really white and doesn't have the roots could have been bleached versus garlic maybe that you find at your farmer's market or other stores that have the root might have discoloration or purple strikes in it or different things like that. So it's just kind of crazy. There's only one product that I could find in here that when I look at where it came from, it was this product of China. This is water chestnut organic sliced, product of China. Now, I was talking about fresh produce, but I also want to say that all the packaged things, canned things, they all have that as well. But, like this one, which is my no salt added, 100% organic tomato paste in the glass jar. This one says product of Italy. And, it's just nice to know. This one, hey, here we go. Organic maple syrup, product of Canada. So I knew I had something here. And it's just kind of nice to know where your things come from. And if you have a choice and it matters to you, then you can decide what works for you. I also wanted to mention the Dirty Dozen. Now, the Dirty Dozen, they in the Clean 15, they tend to change and update annually. I went on their site. It's still showing 2024. So I just thought I would read the list off. I hope that they update it soon. Some of this stuff surprised me, right? The Dirty Dozen had strawberries on it. And if you're not familiar with the Dirty Dozen or the Clean 15, it's on a website called ewg.org. And you can learn all about what they have there in terms of, what am I trying to say? They'll just be able to tell you a lot of information, and it's a great resource. So the Dirty Dozen is like, if you're going to buy produce, you can't buy everything organic. These are the things that maybe you'd want to consider not doing conventionally because they're so dirty. Okay. And so I wanted to read that. Strawberries, spinach. Number 3 actually has several in it: kale, collards, and mustard greens. Grapes is number 4. Peaches, number 5. Pears, number 6. Nectarines, number 7. Apples, bell peppers, and hot peppers would be number 9. Cherries, number 10. Blueberries, number 11. And 12 is green beans. So those are the Dirty Dozen. Then, of course, I had mentioned there's the Clean 15, which that means that if you can't buy organic and you want to buy something that's non-organic, maybe these are less dirty. And I was really surprised by the first one, sweet corn. Sweet corn is a Clean 15. I don't know. For me, I want corn. That's a whole nother subject. I'm not going to get into it. But I'll read the list that they have. Sweet corn, avocado, because it has the thick skin, so that makes sense to me. Pineapple, which also has a thick skin. Onions, I was surprised. I would think you would want onions because of the layers to be organic, but it's on the Clean 15. Papaya, sweet peas, asparagus, honeydew melon, kiwi, cantaloupe, cabbage, watermelon, mushrooms, mango, sweet potato, and carrots. So, anybody have any questions? So there you have it. And now you know how to read food labels like a pro. So, for me, focus on the whole food, be mindful of the hidden sugars, the sodiums, and the preservatives. Understand that more ingredients usually isn't better. And if you can't pronounce it, or you stumble like I do, or you don't even know what it is, well, maybe you don't want to eat that. And always choose organic when possible. And I'm not telling you what to do. This is a reminder because these are things that I like to do. And especially for things like rice and tofu, where non-organic options can be harmful, I always try to do that. Reading labels is an important part of making healthier choices. We're our own best advocates, right? But remember, it's just one thing in your tool in your journey towards better health. It's just one tool, right? Be sure to keep learning, experimenting with new ingredients, and focusing on whole food, plant-based foods that nourish our body. And of course, coming here and spending time with you guys is so helpful. I learn things. I hope you learn things. And I appreciate your time. I hope this session helped clear up some of the confusion around food labels. Maybe you learned something. I know I did. And I just want to thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you in the next one. And before we sign off, I just want to know, was there anything else that you saw in the chat, Todd?
Appleday feels rather un-Canadian, admitting that she's not a huge fan of maple syrup. Fortunately, this is a judgment-free zone.
Okay.
And has so many questions that they can't all be listed here.
Oh, okay. Well, if you find that some of your questions are answered and you think that it would be something we'd enjoy, I'd love to hear about it. And you can always put it in the chat after, when it's the replay. I see that Jill D said, thank you, Jennifer and Todd. Great information. Mona says, I finally found the grade 8. Is that 8 or B?
B.
Oh, B maple syrup, but couldn't pull the trigger to buy it. way over my budget. Okay. And Core Scorpy says, thank you, Jennifer. Mona says it balances out my very acidic dressing. Oh, she's talking. Yes. So there's lots of conversation going on, and I appreciate it. And Mona says, yes, it did. And I did learn something new, and everybody is being so thankful, and I appreciate it. Let's see. Apple a Day says they're all, it's hard
Existential.
For me. Oh, okay.
Questions.
Existential questions. Nan says, thanks. And Elle says, thanks so much, Jennifer and Todd. Thank you. This was a deep dive. Yes, it was. And I'm sorry I went over, but it was just so important. And I want to say, don't forget to eat your greens and give plants a chance, everyone. Take care. I so enjoyed spending this time with you, and I look forward to next time. Bye for now, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do it. Bye.